Well, hello, everybody. This is Larry with the Blue Collar Nation podcast. We're so happy to have everybody with us today. And I've got my engaging business partner, Mr. Eric Sprague, with us. What's happening, Mr. Tech Whisperer?
Are you feeling okay?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling
'Cause
almost as much
usually
as
you never
engaged as
start.
you
You
are.
actually said I'm engaging, and you never say anything nice about me on this podcast. So I'm wondering what's wrong.
No, I've got to, dude. You got to keep people, engaged themselves with you and the podcast because you are the Tech Whisperer. Stand back. So we got a really cool show today. We're very excited. And Eric's drinking there, so I had to cover for him for a moment there. I don't know what he was drinking. Was that coffee or,
That was water.
having an early cocktail? No, you don't drink cocktails, though. That's the problem, huh? Right on. That would be me. Anyway, we have a great show today. And listen, we got a cool sponsor today. Does anybody know about the sponsor? Super Tech University? Eric, tell them what Super Tech University is.
Yeah, Super Tech University is a video training series for home service technicians where we don't talk about technical skills because everybody gets a lot of training on that generally anyway. We talk about soft skills. We talk about the ability to communicate with clients, how to create a 5-star service experience, how to overcome objections, how to deal with conflict, all the things that a lot of us as technicians, I know when I started as a tech, I didn't have any of these skills and had to learn them the hard way over the years. So now you can do it in just 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week for your entire team. So just go to supertechu.com and sign up.
Boom. That was almost as good as what I do.
That was better than what you do.
No, I don't know. We could debate that all day long.
Sure.
Listen, we got to get to the podcast. We've got an amazing guest. Ken's being very patient watching us with our antics. We have Ken Rusk, the author of the Blue Collar Cash book. I've got it here showing on the screen. Oh my gosh, I made my set block.
There you go.
We're very excited.
Ken, welcome.
Is a proponent of the trades, owner of Rusk Industries, and we're very happy to see you today. How's it going, Ken?
It's going great. Thanks. I appreciate you guys having me.
No,
Cool.
Great book, man. Really, really enjoyed that book. So maybe for the listener, Ken, you could kind of feel free to take some time and tell everybody your background story, because I think that's crucial for the rest of the conversation. I think people need to know where you came from and how you ended up where you are now.
Okay, so real quick, small town, Ohio, Amherst, Ohio, which is just on the south shore of Lake Erie. And, grew up like any normal kid. I had 4 brothers. We were all in a small house under the age of 9. And so there was 5 of us running around like crazy. And we lived a pretty lower middle class life growing up, and had a lot of fun doing it. And we always were doing odd jobs. We were always building things, fixing things, or going out and doing odd jobs. And eventually got into high school. And when I was about 15, we would cut through. There was a fence between my high school and the industrial park next door, and we would cut through this hole in the fence to go to the carryout and hang out after school. That's just what we did back then. And every time I went through there, I noticed there was like always energy, people milling around. There was, dump trucks and backhoes and all that kind of stuff that would excite a young man at the time. And finally, I just said, "What do you guys do here?" And they said, "We're basically ditch diggers." And I said, "Okay, well, I can do that. I need gas money for my car eventually, or my moped at the time. I need to take my girlfriend out for pizza, or
that's something blast from
and
the past. You
just dated yourself with the moped reference.
Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
All of us.
I wanted to go bowling with my buddies or whatever. So I wanted a more substantial job. And so I would dig ditches in the summertime, and then I would work in the office in the wintertime while I was still in school. And so I got to kind of learn both halves of the office. And I did that for 3 or 4 years. When I was 19 or 18, actually, they asked me to help them expand because they were growing. The company was growing and they were launching businesses all around the country. So they wanted me to go help open these new franchises. So I did that for a while, lived out of a suitcase for 3 or 4 years. And then I said, okay, I want to do this on my own. Moved to Toledo, Ohio. Started a company with 6 people. We now have almost 200. And that was many years ago, but it's been a hell of a ride.
That's amazing. And you
It
know,
was a great story in the book. I totally enjoyed the book, and you had a little more details. It was a good book. Go ahead,
Thank
Eric.
you.
well, I was going to say I could relate to, and you said it in the book and here as well, how you'd cut through the fence and just the energy of like a blue collar business that has an energy that you don't see other places. There's just lots of activity and machines, and I used to love that about our service business, and I do miss that after, since we sold like all the trucks and people prepping stuff and loading vans, and just there's a lot of action.
Yeah.
And I always that appealed to me because I never really like sitting behind a desk all that much. So I understand where you're coming from on
Well,
that.
yeah, it's funny because right now we probably have 40 vehicles on the road every day, and I'm listening. You can't hear it, but I'm listening to the backup alarms, and that just means that they're getting ready to finish their day. And so yeah, the activity in the morning, the activity in the afternoon, it's really kind of like you said, it's kind of addicting, and that would be something I would miss. And it's been a great experience to have it to be honored to run this company for this many years.
So could you go through the story a little further? Because I know, you literally went on the road, like you packed up every week and you'd be gone and opening new places. So can you walk us through the whole growth of this and then to the point where you guys went out on your own and were doing it with, I believe, your brother?
Yeah, it was really interesting because here I am, I'm 18. I went to my father and I said, listen, I have this opportunity to do this, or I can go to college. And he said, well, you're getting paid to learn how to do something on somebody else's dime, and you can experiment how opening a business works. So you're never going to get that kind of knowledge in school, and you can always go back and do that if you want to. So I remember every weekend I would pack up my clothes and I would drive to Chicago or Cincinnati or Columbus and just kind of live there throughout the week, and then drive home on Friday morning. And it was pretty interesting because here at the time I was probably, I don't know, 5'7" or 8 and 150, 160 pounds, and I'm walking into these heavily union organizations in Chicago, and I'm telling these plumbers and electricians how I want them to build out the office. And they were looking at me like, well, who the heck are you to tell us how to do that?
Exactly.
And I was scared. I was scared to death because these guys were all massive human beings with hard hats and stickers all over.
Yeah.
But I knew what we needed to do. So it was like trial by fire. And it's maybe that's the best way to learn something, but it was pretty spooky at the time. And, we opened again 4 or 5 of those places around the Midwest. And then I thought, well, now that I know how to do this, I really need to do this for myself. And I didn't want to live out of a suitcase anymore either. I mean, that's no fun for anyone who's done that. I just gotten married, and so we decided to settle down here in Toledo. And like I said, we borrowed 50 grand from a bank, and we said, if we run out of money, we run out of luck. And we scraped everything we could together to make that loan happen. We came out here and started with like 6 people and slowly built it up, survived, treaded water for a while. And now we recognize the fruits of our labors. And it's an honor. It's really an honor to run a business like that and to help people grow along with you, during that whole path.
Yeah. And I
Well,
think
the part in the book.
Go ahead, Larry.
I was just talking about the part in the book when I think it was Tim, one of your buddies, your colleagues that worked with you for a while, and he had a goal and he just worked along. And it was a great story about a guy that just was driven, make it happen. And you were obviously had a lot of leadership with him. And that goes a long way with leading a company, a blue collar company. These opportunities for people are so huge.
Yeah, I think the unique thing there is we were kind of writing the script as we went along. I mean, he was my very first coaching endeavor. And guys, just so you know, I have no training. I went to college for a couple months, didn't like it, couldn't do it. I don't have any letters after my name. Me being a coach is probably illegal in some countries, but I actually sat down with him and said, let's draw what you want your future to look like. And we did. We took crayons and we just drew what he wanted. He wanted this kind of house and this kind of car and this kind of family, this kind of dog, this kind of hobby, this kind of, and we just kind of drew it out with clarity. And he just went at it one piece at a time. And I got to tell you, every year at the Christmas party, he's a huge guy. He's like 6'5", 230. And he would pick me up and say, without you, I wouldn't be. And I'm like, no, I had 2% to do with this. You had 98%. We just figured out a way for you to get what you want. And to anyone out there who's trying to run a company, in my mind, if you can build people who can manage themselves, who can see goals because you help them to see those goals, and to be like kind of self-directed and almost like, thanks, Ken, for the training. Now get out of my way and let me do it. You can take your company miles further than you can do it on your own. So, the people here will hear, if you ask the people here, they'll say, I've heard Ken say 1,000 times, I can't get what I want, nor can my company get what it wants or needs until all of you get what you need first. And it's absolutely true. We have to drop the boss ego thing and become someone who is in the business of supporting others to get their goals, even selfishly. And your company will launch way further than you can do it on your own.
Yeah. It's the old Zig Ziglar adage. If you help people get what they want, you'll always have what you want, or some version of that. So, well, then, my question would be, I think my first question would be, if you hadn't worked for the company for so long and seen every little aspect of it, do you think you could have made it a go of it without that not training?
Well,
it must have helped.
There's no doubt that it helped. I mean, and I encourage anyone who thinks that they want to take this entrepreneur path. And by the way, entrepreneur is not a word you can draw. It's kind of a vague concept. And that's what I talk about in the book. So I would encourage anyone to go out and experience the field that they want to eventually run their own business in. Absolutely. And for me, if somebody comes here and they give me, 3, 5, 7 good years, and then they want to go do something on their own, hey, have at it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I've had the benefit of your experience for that period of time. And hopefully I've presented that person in a way that they'll present the industry in a moral and ethical way as well. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to help out as many people as we can. And like you said, we end up benefiting along the way.
Yeah. You hear in our world, like, oh, I'm not going to train so-and-so because they'll just leave me. And it's like, well, if you don't train them, they might stay. And they're terrible.
Right.
It's like, why?
Which
why
is the
would
worst?
why would you train them?
Yeah.
And what we found is the more that you put into somebody, the longer they're going to stay anyway, because they appreciate it. They're happy. They're not.
Well,
I
I was lucky. I was lucky. I had some interaction with a guy named Tom Golisano, and he is the guy who founded Paychecks on $1,700, by the way. And one of the things that he said in his book, which I thought was cool, was, your goal should be to create entrepreneurial employees. These are people that feel like they own their department. They feel like they own their schedule, their destiny, their time, their control. They feel like they own the result, but yet they are still working inside the envelope of your company.
Yeah.
And in that way, they don't feel like they need to leave because they're in control of their world where they're at. And you benefit immensely from that situation. Those people are typically a smidge more expensive to have around, but that's good because that's what you want, because they're driving you again further than you can drive yourself. So I do think there's two ways to look at that, and certainly having, taking the path of an entrepreneurial employee supporter is definitely one way that I would recommend.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Larry and I did that too. Have you ever read the book The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly? Have you ever heard of that book?
No, I have not.
That's a must read. That's a really interesting read. And the concept is that it's a story of a person that owned a big janitorial company in Ohio, in Cincinnati. And they had 440% year-on-year turnover. So they're turning over every position 4 times a year, right? And the book goes through, and it's basically a servant leadership model of how they turned it from that to actually having a waiting list for employees by investing in people.
Unbelievable.
So a really interesting read. I would like to
time
move
in
on.
people, time and energy, and
yeah.
energy and education. Go ahead, Eric. You want to move on? What are you going to tell us about?
Well, I wanted Ken to tell us a story about Minnesota, and then I wanted to dig into that a little bit. So, Ken, you had a story in the book about a guy that you just called Minnesota. So maybe if you could kind of retell the story, and then we could get into, the comfort and freedom and all the other things to go with that as well. Like,
Sure.
Intertwine those.
So I believe that everything starts with a vision. And to make this real simple, you get in your car, you put it in reverse, you back it out of the driveway, you put it in drive, you know where you're going. I mean, you don't ever do that exercise and go, where the heck am I going? Right. So there's a plan and there's a vision for almost everything we do every day. What I'm saying is we don't use enough of our brain, enough of our visionary side to create the life that we eventually want for ourselves. And those lives are all very, very different. I took 20 guys that were here and I said, draw your favorite vacation on this piece of paper. Every vacation was different. Some were in the mountains, some were, hunting, some were on the beach, some were Disney World with their family, hiking. They were all different. And that's good because they were all right. Okay. That's what they were after. So I remember being at, and it's funny because when I wrote the book, he was one of the first stories that I remember. I remember being in a place in Cancun, Mexico, and it was one of those all-inclusives. And so when you got there, you had this colored wristband on your wrist, and that told everyone working there when you got there and when you're leaving, so they could kind of help you throughout your process.
Right.
And so this one particular gentleman, he had like 7 or 8 bracelets on his wrist. And I saw him at the bar every night. You pay for your drinks with beads that you buy and wear around your neck. It's a really unique scenario. So he had all these beads and he had all these bracelets. And finally I said, tell me about your story. Why do you have all these bracelets? And he said, well, I'm from Minnesota and I'm a grass cutter. I'm a landscaper guy. I mow lawns with my crew. And he said, I work really, really hard from April through like November, okay, to do all the work that I can. And I have a nice little ranch house. I have a 5-year-old pickup truck that runs perfectly and a little barn behind it. And I maintain my equipment in November and December, and then I check out and I leave the world January, February, and March. So for 3 straight months, I travel to all these different Club Meds and experience all these different people. And I just unplugged completely. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. 3 straight months, you're just hanging out doing nothing. He goes, yeah, that's right. And he goes, but I work really hard the rest of the year because this is my vision for the life that I want for myself. And I thought, well, first off, who has the stones to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Not many people.
Not many people. And, but then I thought how brilliant that this is his nirvana. Okay. That's his measure of life, his comfort, peace, and freedom piece that he really wants to create for himself. And I couldn't wait. I never even got the guy's name. That's why I call him the grass cutter from Minnesota. And I think that story, I've told that a lot of people have read the book and a lot of people have heard that story. And they said, you know what, that really changed the way I look about what I'm doing in my own life, because those are some simple choices, but they're pretty cool if you think about it.
Yeah. You kind of lay out the comfort, peace, and freedom. Can you lay that out for the listener of what that means? And then we can maybe dig into a little conversation about, what that means for different people. Cause I had some thoughts about that I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah. So this started because, I remember I was writing a letter to my daughter who was suffering from a pretty serious illness at the time. And that was a scary 5 years. I mean, as a parent, to have your kids suffer from cancer, it's tough. And luckily she's good now. She came through it pretty well after some time.
It's had to been such a tough period for you.
Yeah. It was really tough. So I had a lot of time sitting around in waiting rooms and contemplating life and thinking about what was important. So I thought, I'm going to write a letter to her about what I think she should eventually chase in life. If you're going to chase something, what should it be? And, we're not all going to go after mega yachts and 15 cars and mansions and all that other kind of stuff, or, being a rap star or a social influencer or whatever it might be. You need to pick out, like the grass cutter did, you need to pick out that peace, that nirvana that you're looking for. And those three words kept coming back to me, almost like in a triangle where they were interdependent upon each other: comfort, peace, and freedom. So, comfort isn't just pajamas or a comfy couch. It's comfortable with who you are, what you want, how you present yourself to others, how they see you. It's kind of a overriding calm that you can have about who you are as a person, and what that looks like and means specifically and only to you. Okay. Then you get into peace. I look at it this way, peace can mean not at war. Sure. But peace can mean a lot more than that. Take your dog for a walk in the park and tell me if you're not finding peace. Okay. Because there's a lot of ways that people can kind of unplug and should unplug to get rid of all of these daily stressors that we just get inundated with all the time. And to be able to find peace is rare. And once again, if you do, you're amongst the very few. Now, if you have those two concepts combined, you are afforded a certain amount of mental freedom to be, instead of frustrated or angered or busy, you're now spontaneous. And you're free to do the things that you want to do, to take the time that you want to do them. And I go into it a lot longer in the book, but if you combine these three terms, if you can say that I have comfort, peace, and freedom in my life, you've nailed it. And you probably have beaten, 99% of the population out there to be able to do that. And it's within reach and it's under your control. That's the best part about it.
Yeah, it's something we all need to figure out.
Well,
I mean, just like with Minnesota, he found out what his comfort and peace and freedom was. And everybody needs to lean towards it. So a lot of people are afraid to do something like that, to come up with what they really want. But there's a lot of value in it. Eric's the dreamer. He always gets me to come up with all these things that I want to come up with that and we're always opposite either as well, which is entertaining.
well, one of the things I was thinking about, Ken, I hope you don't mind. I want to play devil's advocate for a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
in the book, you had kind of laid out a few scenarios where, people are like an owner operator, right? So that you can be like Minnesota and, cut grass all summer and take the thing. But I mean, Larry and I know from being in the trades a long time, a lot of owner operators, they have less freedom than employees. They're slaves to their business. They're constantly working, constantly just working to make payroll. And then, I always think of, it sounds so great in paper to be an owner operator, because it's like I'm out doing, like, say I'm a plumber. I love plumbing. I've always loved to be a plumber. But all of a sudden, by the time you're like my age, like 55, can you really be out being a plumber every day? Right. So I guess I would like to address the idea of having a scalable turnkey business versus being an owner operator long term, because I think there's a lot of risk that comes with being an owner operator, especially as you age.
Yeah. Well, first off, there's a couple things. Let me address that part first, and then I want to get to something a little newer, which is interesting. But so this is very controversial, because everyone wants to play, I have my own company, and that affords them certain characteristics that they think are important. I'm the boss. I control everything. I get involved in everything. I make all the decisions. And when I go home and my wife says, "How's your day?" I say, "Well, I solved this and I fixed that. And I gave this guy an answer and I made that thing happen. And okay, good. I'm proud of you for that."
Yeah.
I have a completely different take, and I've used this my entire career. My goal as an owner operator is to become absolutely irrelevant to the business.
Yeah. Well, I'm good with that, because at that point you have a turnkey business. You could go away for 8 weeks and they're doing the work. Like I'm with you. That's always been my vision as well. But
Right.
what about the guy who's afraid to do that? Because Larry and I have been part of a lot of coaching groups, and guys, they never get there. They're always stuck on the truck.
But yeah, I mean, it is a decision. There's no doubt. I mean, again, I think for a lot of those people, they need to figure out, are they working to live or living to work? I mean,
Yeah.
We got 80, 90 years on this planet, and those should be as good as they can possibly be. So, I think there's probably a good work-life balance there that people need to learn more about. I think there's a lot more buckets they need to fill that they don't think about, like charity, giving back, health, hobbies, sports, the things that keep them alive and keep them healthy. I'm a huge health hobbyist. I'm into stem cells and biologics and all those types of things. So to keep me going and keep me on the golf course and keep me working. So I just think that for people who are afraid to take that step, it's because they don't necessarily see what the reward of that is clearly enough. And I'd love to talk to them about, well, let's draw what your world should look like. I mean, what would you do if you had this scenario? Okay, a few more dollars in your pocket, a few more hours in your day, and a little more time and freedom to be able to pursue these other things. What would you do? And I get a lot of blank stares because people aren't used to being asked that question.
Right.
So
Well, they can't see
I think they
past
have
the
to
work.
yeah, they have to challenge themselves to be bigger than their company, to be worth, they have to be more than just what their company is, and not let that define them completely.
Yeah. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly because Larry and I come from the water damage and carpet cleaning world, and we have so many carpet cleaning friends that are owner operators who have very profitable, great businesses, but they're completely reliant on that person pushing the wand themselves. And Larry and I were always like, I want to be pushing a wand as little as humanly possible, because
Yeah, right.
well, not even just so that, I can go spend tons of time with a boat, but like, what if I get hurt? I got to have somebody that can do this or I'm out of income.
Well, and how about this one? My daughter got sick. I had to take her all over the country.
Yeah.
Okay. And I basically came to the office and I said, guys, this is on you. You need to make this happen because I need to make this happen.
Right. 100%.
And I thank the Lord every day that I had the ability to just pick up and go to Philadelphia and not have this thing stop. And again, she was 12 at the time, and that taught me a big lesson. So I got to tell you guys, I watched every golf swing she ever took in her life. And I did that on purpose because I thought, oh my God, I mean, what am I really doing? Am I grinding dollars or am I living?
Right.
And that can teach you a pretty quick lesson. And again, I encourage anyone who lives to work to really stop and turn that around and say, what am I living? Okay. Am I working to live? And what does living mean? And try to flip that switch a little bit. And here's another thing, you might think, well, employees are expensive. Well, yes, they are. But I can tell you that every nickel I spent on, a manager for this department or a manager for that department, as I grew, that came back in spades of more revenue coming in. And so they totally paid for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's just a risk you have to take, but it's one that I'm willing to talk about because I think it's the only way to live.
So, well, this is great. So let's unpack that a little bit. So if I'm basically an owner operator, maybe I have a couple people working, right? What would your advice be to get to that point where they could have more of a scalable business so that if, something happened in their life, they actually could leave and it continues to go like it was for you? Like what were some of the steps that needed to be taken to get there so that you did have that freedom should you need to not be there?
Well, again, the very first thing I did is I got some of these potentially solid people around me. And I said, okay, this is the level of our company right now. Okay. I want to take it to this level. I need more people to do that. I want you to help me do that. And guess what? If you think you're making X now, you get a substantial share of Y. Okay. So now my company's doing X amount of $1 million a year. I want to take that to the next level. And if and when we do that, you're all going to get this much of that growth.
Right.
Well, I'm telling you guys, they were like, Ken, get the hell out of the way. Let's go.
Right.
And we started with things like annual vacations, and then we started with annual bonuses, and then we started with quarterly bonuses and profit sharing. And if they could see that they were actually in control of their own income, they were like, let's roll. And the staff just grew around that, because everyone that's in this building is involved in that type of program. So yeah, you got to be willing to share the pot, but only the pot that's grown. You share in the growth. And I'm telling you, that'll take you a lot further than you can do it on your own. That's for sure.
Yeah. I remember Larry and we would sit in meetings with all our team, and, we basically make sure everybody understood, like, because we looked around and go like, that person's better at accounting than us. That person's better than sales than us. That person's better at marketing. That person's a better technician than I ever was. Right. And all, and then we would celebrate that fact with them. Hey, you know what? You're amazing. Like we couldn't do that. Right. And all of a sudden they're taking ownership of that position in a big, big way. I think it's powerful.
But now there's another level to that. Okay. So now you have this money. What are you doing with it? I mean, I get really deeply involved in setting personal goals for everybody here, because if you're not chasing something, if you're just living for Friday, this isn't the place for you. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I talk about goals, I don't talk about goals in that, oh, you should have a goal, set a goal, let's do a goal. No, they're very specific. Okay. I want to go see my aunt in Ireland, and I want to do that in the next couple of years. Okay. That trip's going to cost me $3,000. I want to do that in 3 years. That's $1,000 a year. That's $20 a week. Go to the payroll clerk, take that 20 a week and stick it in that account. And we are going to celebrate every single week with you until that 3 years comes. And if you think that's a long time, 3 years goes by in a flash. Well, guess what? She went to Ireland. She saw her aunt, loved it, took pictures of it, came back, and now she's on her second goal and her third goal and her fourth goal. And Ken, that's the point where I'm talking about.
That's exactly the Dream Manager book. What you just explained without having ever read the book is how they stopped their turnover problem and got people wanting to work there and engaged, because all of a sudden the company's taking enough care in them to help them reach their life goals. Because like you said, we're not living to work. We're working to live. All of us.
100%. And the best part is once they do one goal, even if it's a small one, I want to pay off this nagging visa. Okay. Or the one gal here, she had to pay her dad back $2,500 from a car that he bought for her. And, it was $38 a week. And a couple of years later, it was gone. And she was like, wow, that really happened. And you just get them involved in one or two of those goals. And then I'm telling you, stand aside and get out of their way, because they will propel themselves in a selfish way. And I love that. And they will propel you and your business at the same time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd like to shift gears quickly, because I thought your dad had an amazing story, and it was a really interesting story. And I think Larry and I related to it because I think our parents are probably similar age to yours. And can you tell us a little bit about Stan?
Well, first off, he was a pretty hardcore Marine, and he used to line us all up and make us make the beds and bounce the quarter off the bedspread. He would do all that stuff. So
nice.
But his growing up was really cool, because again, imagine a 12-year-old kid getting on a bus by himself, and then getting on a train, and then getting off the train to another bus and going to his job every day in the summertime. And this is before they had faxes and all that kind of stuff. So he would take copies of contracts and he would deliver them to different accounting offices and lawyers' offices. And he would get in cabs to do this, and he'd ride his bike around downtown Cleveland.
His parents would be in jail if that happened now.
100%. Yeah. It would be child endangerment. It would be, they'd take your kid away from you. I mean, so it's really unbelievable to see that was just something that was okay to do, right? And he loved doing it because he made money. And then he started waxing cars, and then he would work at grocery stores. And I think the funniest part about his story was he really wanted to manage a grocery store because they gave him one department, then they gave him two, then they gave him three, and he made them all really good. And then he went and got a whole store and he made that store really good. This is for Kroger's, by the way. And they said to him, well, we need you to have a college degree before we can get you to run one of these stores. And he's like, well, how do you figure that? Because I'm kind of like running these stores now. And they said, well, we want to start sending people to train. And then if you train them, we'll talk further. So then he would train these managers to become managers, and they would go out and open stores. And then a couple of years later, he said, I want to go do this. And they said, you can't. And he said, why? He said, well, you haven't gotten your college degree yet. And he said, but I'm training people that have college degrees.
Yeah,
I mean,
makes no sense.
I'm training your managers. So they looked at each other and they said, well, let's not tell anyone upstairs. Let's just make him a manager. And he became the youngest manager of a Kroger's in their history at 21 or 2 years of age.
Wow.
So
it's amazing.
Pretty cool story.
So is your dad just like super go-getter? I mean, just super driven?
Yeah, you would call him a triple A. I used to have to shine his shoes, and I used to have to wash the cars, and I used to have to, anything I did, it had better be perfect. And, I had to go out when I waxed the cars, I'd have to get the toothbrush, and where the trunk met the fender, I'd have to get all that stuff out of there. And if the wire wheels weren't like spotless, I had to do it over. And, looking back on that, was he tough on us? Yeah, he was tough, but, he also I guess inserted a sense of, that imperfect perfectionism in each one of us that that kind of helped throughout. I mean, we could do a whole nother subject on parenting, guys. You know that. And I was lucky. I mean, he was a traveling salesman, so I didn't see him a lot, only on weekends, but it was pretty good stuff that, having that discipline within our household, and it was necessary with 5 little kids. So,
yeah. So how do you think his example or teachings influenced you on your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I would say this. When I talk about in the book about these 9 characteristics that every entrepreneur has, I actually believe we all have these characteristics within us. We just need a reason for them to come out. And I absolutely believe that, because I've seen people that weren't entrepreneurs, but all of a sudden they had a goal that they really wanted to hit. And man, look out, they just blossomed into this new goal crushing person. But yeah, I think things like, persistence and resilience and, doing it over and courage and faith and initiative and humility. He gave us a lot of those things, especially the hard-nosed stuff, like go do it, go fix it, go make it right, go make it perfect. Call me when you're done. There's some suffering in that, but I think it's good suffering.
Yeah, no, I agree. So what's next for you, Ken? I mean, I know you did the book and I know you're coaching. So what do you think the next, I mean, I know I haven't known you very long, but I know there's something next.
Well, that's interesting, because whenever I think of a book, I think of, okay, a lot of people sit in front of their bookshelves on especially on Zoom calls like this. And there's all these books and they've read all these books. And sometimes I think they're more trophies than they are anything else, because I read these books, I put them up on the shelf, they're trophies. And did they really put any of those practices to work? Right. So because I know this and because I know of the experience I've had as coaching, I built this course. It's a simple thing. It's 8 weeks, 1 hour per week. You could do it in a weekend if you really wanted to, but I've seen courses that were $500, $1,500, $2,000. No, this course is $99. You get a free $25 copy of Blue Collar Cash. And if you buy this course, I will donate one in your name to either someone or someone here that needs it in the community. So if you're helping yourself, you're also helping someone else in the process. And we launched the course and it's starting to take off, and it's pretty cool because people are calling me and saying, hey, I quit smoking. Hey, I lost 42 pounds, or, I set off on getting rid of that debt, or, one guy said, I loved being a plumber's assistant when I was 19. My parents made me go to college. Now I'm sitting in this cubicle at 45 years of age selling medical supplies. I hate it. I read your book. I'm going to go be a plumber again. And he is, and he's never been happier. So just stuff like that makes that whole thing worthwhile.
Oh, that's cool. So can you give our listeners a little bit of info as to what's inside the course, the 8 weeks, like just some highlights maybe? Larry, I think you're muted.
Well, again, I don't think anything happens. If you're baking a cake, you start with a recipe, okay? If you're planning a vacation, you start with a destination and you visualize every aspect of that, okay? If you're buying a car, we used to have these things called brochures where you take the brochure at home and you would figure out how to build the car the way you wanted it. In any part of life, there's some way to plan or vision or see what it is. And you guys have had this happen to you where someone is having a conversation with you and at the end of every sentence they say, do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? Well, what they're doing is they're asking you to see the pictures that they have in their head so that you better understand what they're trying to tell you. I'm saying we should anticipate and visualize every single aspect of our life, just like we do a vacation, because we're all good at doing that, right? So the course starts out with, what do you want your own life to look like? Not what anybody else wants for you, what you want for you, okay? You and only you know what this looks like. So let's start with that. Let's build that out. And then let's learn the disciplines along the way that it takes to make those things happen, keeping your head straight, keeping your mind straight, keeping your goals clear, and then going after these things one step at a time.
Yeah. Larry, you coming in?
No, I think the course sounds great. And it's something that people want to reach their goals and they need to address them. Many people don't address their goals in the first place. And if you have a simple course that breaks it down to people, that it's affordable, that's amazing.
I love the visualization
Where can they
part.
Yeah. Now, where can people find out about the course?
Well, you can get it at kenrusk.com. And there's a mechanism there where you go in and you buy the course and then you get your free book download, and then you can donate the free course and the free book download for somebody else. And, I'm just thrilled. I didn't do this to write. Again, I didn't write this book to make money. Okay. My life was really good before that. Okay. Very blessed, very grateful. And I give back a ton because I believe in that. This is just one more way of me doing that because I donate most of the proceeds to charity anyway. So, go to kenrusk.com and you can, work your way through the book and the course and figure out how to get it there.
Well, awesome. Larry, I think you're muted. Ken, thank you so much for joining us. Please go do the course, the 8-week course. It's totally worth it. I'm like Larry had mentioned, I'm a big dreamer and I'm super visual. I have to draw everything out in a notebook anything I want to accomplish. I have to see it and try to take it from my mind to paper somehow to make it a goal sheet.
I'm going to get him a big box of box of Crayolas. Ken.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Ken, you're taking it to the next level.
It's good stuff.
So anyway,
I'll let him draw on his face so we can get that all cleared up.
Yeah. And I suggest that everybody go get a copy of the Blue Collar Cash book because I really enjoyed that, Ken. I thought it was really well written.
Thank you.
And it addresses a lot of the things. And maybe one of these days we got to come back and just talk about getting people into the trades. That like I was going to open that can of worms, but we would have been here all day. And
well, you know what? I'm happy to do it. It's an important thing. I'm really happy to do it because so many kids are getting tossed into this corral that they don't belong in. And it would be really cool to see them going out and creating something with their own two hands and making a huge living doing it. So
there's so much opportunity as well.
Oh, big time. Big time.
Trades because people aren't going.
Isn't like the average age of a master plumber is like 54 and a master electrician's like 57. And,
yeah,
our society can't run without people doing these things. So it's
and people, it's so funny, guys, because even the most hardcore, opponent of what my message is, they're like these, they're elitist, educational, you know, you got to get all the schooling you can, and you got to do this, or you're stigmatized and blah, blah, blah. Even they will turn around and say, what the hell? I just paid $1,000 to get an electrical outlet put in my house.
Yeah.
The guy was only here for an hour. And I'm like, bingo, there
Yeah,
you go. Okay.
exactly.
So you keep
Well,
doing that. And then
Well, you know, and here's the scary part. Wait 5 to 10 more years when all of those guys retire and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
nobody to replace them. Now you're paying 2,000 and you're going to wait 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, they'll
So
be making more money than lawyers and doctors and accountants. That's for
there's
sure.
never been a better young people listening. There's never been a better time to get in the trades than right now. So,
Yep.
All right. So, Ken, one last time, how to find your book and how to get your course. Just
So go to kenrusk.com and you can work your way through the book, the course there at the top, and it'll work your way how to get through the buy buttons and figure out where to go. And it's a pretty simple process. And again, I just appreciate anyone who goes there and does it, because you're not only helping yourself, but you're going to help out somebody else at the same time.
That's perfect. Ken, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure to
Thanks
be
for
with you,
having me,
Ken.
guys.
Very
A lot
cool.
of fun.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.